Look, I believe there is something seriously wrong with the job application process. I have applied to well over 300 different jobs and I've written countless cover letters, and that's gotten me thinking, like, why am I caring so much about some crap entry-level $50,000 a year job where I am probably going to be overworked and underpaid? And a quote from Reddit that has really stuck with me: work is essentially selling your life by the hour for a minimum of $19.84 per hour in Australia, and you are unconsciously knowing and accepting your life is worth that amount of money. And when that day comes when you are no longer functional, you just get replaced. Firstly, I like to start off talking about the actual process. Now, a lot of jobs these days that you're applying for require you to make an account, and you have to input your details every single time. And, well, it is a mortal sin if you do not customize your cover letter for every single job, and you have to tailor it to every single requirement in the job listing. Moving on to the sorts of shitty questions that you might be asked in the job interview process. Why would we hire you? You're expected to know everything about the company, on top of the 30 other companies that you might be applying for at the same time. You might also be asked, why are you a good fit for this job, even if your resume and your past experience aligns perfectly with the role already. And my personal favorite, why did you apply for this role? And honestly, if you were not hiring, I probably would not apply. And I can't apparently put money as my answer. I feel like with a lot of the interviews I've had, they're trying to gauge what I can offer them, because honestly, they have 400 other shits who want this job as well. And I feel like as a prerequisite, you need to show that you're desperate to work here and this is your absolute dream company. Now, when you do your company research and you look at their mission statements, it's all bullshit. Their mission is to make money and nothing else. And why would you care for a company that drops you if you don't fit with their bottom line? Now, on a side note, I'd like to include some questions I'd like to ask the employer. First up is, what do you like about working here? And you can really gauge their reaction as to whether this would be a good or a really shitty place to work at. And next question would be, what's the pay? As honestly, I am not working here out of the goodness of my heart. I know it's really taboo to ask this during the job application process, but come on, guys. And I do like to gauge whether there will be any unpaid overtime associated with this role. As my coworker loves to say, unpaid work is illegal in Australia. Another thing I hate is how everything is now solely focused on sales and KPIs, and it's not about ensuring customer satisfaction or retention anymore. For example, that bank teller job that I'm applying to is mostly sales. Okay, now on to uploading the resume, which means doing some data entry. Now, I really love companies when they have this one-click apply function, and it's usually off sick. But what I would like to know is, what happens with all this data? Why do they want to know my address and date of birth before I have even made it through the first round of interviews? And something that really grinds my gears is that I am not giving out my professional references right off the bat, so these companies better stop asking. Now, call it as a coincidence or whatever, but I feel like I've recently gotten a lot more of these scam phone calls from a robot that says it's from the government or the police threatening arrest ever since I started applying for jobs. Now, if you've made it through the first round, you're going to be hit by psychological or aptitude testing. Now, I get it. The company doesn't want to hire a complete dumbass or a criminal. I recently had one where it was over 90 questions, and these were questions such as, would you agree that stealing is wrong? Do you think the average person steals? If you saw a coworker steal, would you report it? And don't let me get started on puzzles. I mean, is there really a reason behind puzzle recognition? As I don't really want to match shapes for an hour. Now moving on to interviews, or as I like to call it, interview theatre. So you better not say the wrong things or you're out. I reckon the employers already know within the first minute or so if they're going to hire you. And personally, I feel like I appear in interviews as a bit indifferent or uncaring. But honestly, it is very hard for me to be enthusiastic about a particular position with a particular company these days, when people on average are applying to around 20 different companies a week. Oh, and avoid recruitment companies like the plague. Now, looking back at all my past interviews and job applications, I like to consider how much time I wasted. Considering even if you spend 10 minutes on each application, like how many hours or days does this add up to be? And as for getting feedback from companies about your performance in these interviews, I personally have gotten feedback from only a handful of employers. Mostly it's just a generic email from a no reply address saying that you have failed. And networking. I find networking pretty fake and superficial because it's like you have to pitch or suck up to someone else. And look, a hard truth is that nepotism is really strong in the workplace. You're not going to get hired over a relative or close friend of the boss, no matter how good your qualifications or experience is. I have seen this firsthand as I got my very first accounting job because the department head boss was a family friend of mine. Later on, I found out there were a few other people working in other departments who also wanted that job, and they were treating me with a certain annoyance anytime I tried to be friendly or professional to them. Now, the final and most important topic I want to talk about is how I try to make this whole shitty job application process work for me. For the cover letter, I have a cheat sheet of responses to common questions that I can just copy and paste. They're all under the STAR format. For those of you who don't know, it's the setting, task, action, and result, and which can be applied to a certain range of questions that might come up in the process. I'll give you some examples. The ability to work in a team, times when you have demonstrated excellent communication and customer service skills, or times when you have met sales targets and KPIs. For the resume, I feel like a lot of companies these days use an AI program to scan it for keywords, and that including all of them keywords that I would like into the resume itself might not really work. So what I did is I put whatever keywords I want, like self-starter, efficient, effective, motivated, in size 3 fonts and color it white somewhere at the end of the resume so no human operator will notice it. For the interviews, I've started looking up companies on Glassdoor before I interview with them, and I have found Glassdoor really helpful in that people who have attended interviews in the past can post their experiences and post the sorts of questions that the interviewer might ask. And current employees can also anonymously post and review their workplace. The way I see it is that if companies can look us up on Facebook and LinkedIn, we can do the same. It goes both ways. And in general, I like to avoid the companies who have extensive testing in their application process. Look, I know there are ways to automate parts of this process using Python, and that might be something to look at in the future. Okay guys, to wrap up this video, I know it's really hard getting hit by all these rejections left and right, and it sucks, but just remember it's not really personal, because I believe there are major flaws with this job hunting process that as job seekers we just have to deal with. And these days, a job is not secure at all. I find that a lot of companies don't give a shit about their employees. And I would like to know if you agree or disagree with what I've said today. Let me know in the comments. This is your host, A Piggy, signing off. Have a nice day.